We went to Star Wars Celebration and we had a panel on Sunday, April 14th. It was entitled Romance. Those ships also belong in Star Wars. So we're going to bring you the live recording of this presentation together with the images we had, because we had a PowerPoint. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you get the recording and the images. And if you're listening, of course, you just get the recording. So let's go.
Can you hear me now? So we were told we can actually start a little bit early because we're at full capacity. So how about we do that? Welcome everyone to the now infamous shipping panel. We're very glad to have you with us today. The first ship that we're going to talk about is the TIE Intercept. Talking about romance in Star Wars. So if you thought this was a panel about, spaceships, this is the wrong room, but we hope you stay. So let's get started. We're first going to talk a little bit about why we wanted to do this. So the topic of romance we feel is extremely important in Star Wars, and we feel it's actually woven into the central story of the saga. And in the sequel trilogy in particular, it's been used as a vehicle to communicate core Star Wars themes. And that's not something that's talked about enough, we think. And also, the topic is important because it means so much to so many of us. There are a lot of people who have built entire communities and close friendships because of this interest that they have. And there are a lot of people who feel that they haven't been really welcome in the fandom, and this is a place where they feel represented. So it's important. Right? That being said, we're grown-ups in costumes talking to other grown-ups about fictional characters kissing and going on dates, so it's also not that serious. It's a fun topic, and we're going to have fun today, hopefully. All right, so before we begin, we're going to all introduce ourselves, and we'll start with Denise.
So my name is Denise. I'm originally from Brazil. I live in Canada. I started with the old trilogy. I saw Return of the Jedi in the cinema, which means I'm a better fan than you. It means I'm old. You see? So I watched the old trilogy when I was a kid, but I like the prequels as well, and I'm a huge fan of the Clone Wars. I'm sad I'm missing their fandom. Yeah.
Hello everybody, my name is Monte. I never grew up with the original trilogy. I didn't become a fan until episode 1 came out. Saw it, got hooked, liked the lightsaber battles, and was a fan ever since. So now I'm here walking out.
And I'm Lee. The first thing I'll say is if you guys listen to our podcast, I promised I would do this panel in full Queen Amidala regalia, but this is actually very heavy. So I'm probably going to take it off at some point, but I'm going to keep it on as long as I can because I do feel, like Queen Amidala. But I'm actually from Latin America originally. I grew up speaking Spanish. I didn't move to the US until I was in my 20s. And my mom thought it was super important for me to learn English and become immersed in American culture because she thought it's going to be important and it's going to help you later in your career. And she was right. So one of the things that she shared with me was Star Wars. She loved it. She had actually seen the OT in theaters. I wasn't alive yet when the OT came out. But she shared it with me, and to me it felt like it was awesome, but it was her thing that she was letting me kind of be a part of. So it wasn't until I got to see the PT in theaters that, it felt like it was my Star Wars. So even though everybody makes fun of it, I make fun of it too. The PT is hilarious, but I still love it to bits. And as you see, I actually made this myself. But yeah. So it wasn't until the sequel trilogy when I actually became part of the fandom, meaning that it wasn't just me enjoying it by myself, but actually sharing it with friends, and that's been so meaningful to me, and I think you guys are here because you feel the same way, probably, right? So let's begin. The first thing we're going to talk about is what is actually shipping? I hear people say, is it FedEx, is it UPS? No, shipping is a term that actually comes from the X-Files fandom in the 90s. That's something I actually didn't know myself. So if you guys, any X-Files fans here? So if you guys remember back in the day, there was a very long will they, won't they thing going on between Mulder and Scully. So the fandom itself divided itself among people who wanted them to have a relationship and people who wanted them to just be colleagues. So the people who wanted the romantic relationship called themselves relationshippers, and then that got shortened into shippers and shipping, and that's where the term comes from. That being said, the tradition of being enthusiastic about pairings has a very long history that obviously predates the 90s X-Files, and Denise is going to tell us a little bit more about that. Yeah.
Right now, I'm just going to talk a little bit about shipping, and I think it has two main sides, two main components: the transformative works, the wonderful fan fictions and fan arts that many of you do, and also the speculation, who get together with whom. So there are different ways, and these two sides, they inform each other, and they interact, and sometimes they're put together. So, but any enthusiasm for a fictional pairing, I think it can be considered shipping.
One thing that we're going to be doing today is that we're going to be dispelling myths or misconceptions about shipping, because a lot of people don't really know what it's about. So we want to tackle the main myths or misconceptions, and we'll be addressing them one by one. And Monte's going to talk to us a little bit about this one.
Now, even in the LT, there were shipping wars going on. Originally, Luke and Leia were supposed to be love interest. I'll tear that up. People thinking, ew, that's gross. Don't worry, I'll take care of you. So, Luke was supposed to have a show interest in Leia, which is why he's like, wow, she's so beautiful. She gave it a cheeky little kiss on the cheek when they swung across that ravine. But behind the scenes, George Lucas noticed that, Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill seem more like brother and sisters. They're kind of like good friends, got along. But there's more romantic chemistry and tension between Harrison Ford and Carrie. I was thinking, okay, you know what? These two seem to get along better. This might translate better on the screen. In fact, even in Empire Strikes Back, there's supposed to be a love triangle. But he was like, you know what? I'm just going to keep Han and Leia the main couple because there's something going on there. So all of a sudden, Luke and Leia becoming brother and sister, that's something Lucas just made up because he got burned out for doing Star Wars. Having personal problems, like I don't do Star Wars anymore, so I'm just wrapping this up into one trilogy, make Leia be the one last hope in case Luke fails. But until then, people thought, oh, Luke and Leia, they're going to be together. They're the main couple. They're so much better than Luke and Han and Leia. Which this letter that I'll read from the editors to Marvel Star Wars 1979 proves. People still thought something was going on between Luke and Leia. First of all, I feel that one of the most charming aspects of the original movie's ending was the sweet affection between Luke and Princess Leia. However, in your comic series, they act more like young brother and sister than sweethearts. Yeah. Since it's already been clearly established that Luke and Leia are in love, just remember, they weren't brother and sister at the time, so.
Yeah.
I don't think it would spoil anything that would be shown in the sequel if you gave a little more emphasis to the romance between them in future Marvel installments.
That seems pretty funny to us now, but at the time, I'm sure a lot of the Luke and Leia shippers were heartbroken when it turned out that they were siblings.
And Girl Scouts.
Okay, so everybody says. So fan fiction started with Twilight, right? No. Hell no. I have a theory. Twilight fans, they traveled back in time, and they became fans of Star Trek. So what happened is that they had these fanzines. When you talk about fan fiction, fan art, now we're talking mostly women. Enthusiasm for pairings is everybody, but when we're talking about fan fiction, it was mostly women with these fanzines, with the fan art, with the fan fiction. It also had articles, it had stories. For Star Trek, even the creator of Star Trek, he supported this, so it was really nice. The first stories, they're not really romantic, they're mostly like a new episode. That's why they're original characters, because, Star Trek, they go to this planet and there's this whole thing going on. But in '69, there was a romantic, the first romantic fan fiction. It didn't have anything explicit, okay? But it was a story where Spock had something with a woman. And then they had a reaction. The fanzine received some letters, and they responded to it. So, the dirty article on page We've been told that a couple of the items in Spokanalia 3 are embarrassing, dirty, or downright trashy. If we've embarrassed you, we're sincerely sorry. The recurrence of the theme of sex is unsurprising. The recurrence of the theme of sex involving Spock is also unsurprising. We Star Trek fans find him attractive and highly masculine. Some of us are articulate, and the result is predictable and even logical. Perhaps some of our readers are too accustomed to the tradition in popular literature of the male protagonist being aroused by the presence of attractive women. When they find that women write it the other way around, they find it strange. This was 50 years ago. Aren't you glad everything changed? Right? You don't need to justify why we find people attractive or why we're writing this. So this was 50 years ago. Now, when you're talking about Star Trek, I'm pretty sure your minds went to Kirk and Spock. But no, actually it wasn't as much, because in the 70s, any same-sex relationship was considered pornography, even if there was nothing detailed, and sent pornography by the mail was a crime, and these fanzines were sent by mail. So imagine. So it took some time. The first one that was published was in 1974 with Kirk and Spock. It was super subtle. And the first one, Women to Women, was in 1977. We had Chappell and Uhura. And the term /fiction comes from there. But something else happened in 77. What happened in 77? Okay. So we're talking about Star Trek as the origin of fan fiction, but it's also important to remember that the fandoms, they overlapped. There was this overlapping fandoms, and a lot of the first fan fictions for Star Wars, they were submitted to Star Trek fanzines. And if you look, you'll find a lot of mashup art like this. There was this thing happening. And then they had these fanzines. There were some fanzines that were really just Star Wars. The only thing is that Lucasfilm really controlled. They said nothing pornographic, nothing plus 18, no same-sex pairings, because they wanted it to be really family-friendly. So you had many pairings, but nothing with the same sex. So you have this is a letter, right? They were sending letters because they own the copyrights, they could sue, whatever. So, for example, you think, Hannah and Luke, it came much later. It came, for example, in the 90s, and then you came, have all this sky's the limit and everything. But it was mainly in the 90s. And just to cap this thing about gay fan fiction, nowadays everything is fine. You can do as much as you want. And even we have in canon gay characters and gay pairings. The most famous of them is Dr. Afra and Sana. It's in the Marvel comics. So we've come a long way.
So we're going to bring it back to Star Wars. We're going to follow along with the movie trilogies. And here we have the PT, my favorite. So you guys, I don't know if you guys have been on online forums where you've heard that people sometimes, some older fans who are kind of bewildered by the whole concept of shipping, they say, back in my day, meaning the prequel trilogy, you didn't see any of this shipping stuff. They're actually right. You didn't see it, but it was there. Why didn't you see it? Well, because first of all, not everybody was online. I can tell you myself, I was in my teens when I saw Padme and Anakin with their romance, and I was just blown away by it. Now I kind of laugh, but I really enjoyed it, and I would have been shipping it like FedEx if I had internet access, but I lived in a third world country. I didn't get internet at home until much, much later. Aside from that, the cultural shift that has happened with the advent of the internet and social media is something incredible. Back then you had to mail your fan fiction to a fanzine. Even later on, there were archives that were open, but not everybody knew about them, so shipping really wasn't as ubiquitous as it is now. Like now on social media, you don't really have to be a hardcore fan to be shipping, but back then, only a small portion of people really knew about it. So in a sense, they're right that you didn't see the shipping, happening left and right, but absolutely people shipped. So this is Padme and Anakin ship, which is known as Anadala. Of course, we have Obi-Wan and Anakin, Obi-Kin. And then there is Obi-Dala. Did you notice that diagram there? I mean, come on. So the interesting thing about Obi-Dala is that they had their own archive, which ran from 2008 until 2017 when it merged with Archive of Our Own in 03. And we're going to talk a little bit about other romance.
Yeah, so it's interesting to note how important, how ingrained in Star Wars romance is. We had romance in the EU with Luke and Mara, and then we also had in the Clone Wars, right? We had, does Obi-Wan need a love interest? Well, it makes him a more interesting character. So in the Clone Wars, we had Obi-Wan with a love interest. We had Jar Jar with a girlfriend. We also had there was an arc with a female villain and Ventress and Vos. I hope they produce the arc. It's wonderful, and so it's important.
So now we arrive at the sequel trilogy. There's a lot going on in terms of pairing enthusiasm, and we're going to divide it by time frames, because it's one thing what happened before the movies came out and then after the movies came out. So Monte's going to tell us a little bit about what happened before The Force Awakens.
Well, before the movie officially came out, many people shipped Finn and Rey. They seemed like the two lead characters. You had these two up-and-coming actors. They go, all right, they'd be perfect. They're both going to spend most of the time together. Then we had Storm Pilot. I wouldn't mind that happens either, just saying. But. So they had that one lingering look in the trailer, like, this unrequited love, oh my God. So some people thought that could be a possibility too. However, after the movie came out, any ship that suits your fancy, you can name it. They had Kylux, some people like couples that fight together. Of course, you had Finn Rey, because they're the two lead characters, they're like all super cute, adorable together. Storm Pilot, because let's face it, I know Oscar has great chemistry for everyone. I mean, and of course, this little ship called Reylo.
So what happened after The Force Awakens was that some people noticed, that Reylo was a thing, but after the last The Rise of Reylo, because that's when a lot of people saw things in the movie that made them become more interested in the pairing. So, the thigh grab scene, the hand touch. These are things that really drove people to kind of seek to know more about the pairing, and so definitely the pairing grew exponentially. It even became mainstream. So here we have asking basically about what's the deal with Reylo. So it became a meme. We have Waffle House shipping. And then we have Adam going on the Colbert Report, and he was, making the Reylo dolls kiss. So if you think about it, compare what's going on in the fandom before the advent of social media. This kind of thing would be happening, at people's houses and clubs. It would be happening by mail. But now it's in your face. It's ubiquitous. It's definitely out there. And even if you are just a casual fan, you're going to be aware of what Reylo is, right? Yeah. This is one of my favorites. This is in the back of your ride. Now shipping to a galaxy.
And also, in the panel for 9, right, there was this multi-shipping with everybody, Finn and Poe, and a question if Kylo is going to be, anyway, semi-naked. So it was there.
So, of course, when something becomes super popular, and we're talking about shipping in general, and also Reylo, there's going to be a backlash, right? That happens in every way. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we understand is the reason for the backlash towards shipping in general. And Reylo in particular, we're talking about Reylo because that's the fandom that we belong to, and so we've seen these things firsthand. But a lot of this stuff applies to just shipping in general, no matter what pairing you support. So, why do some people hate shipping?
Yeah, so I think one perception is that, like we said, fan fiction is mostly female, but enthusiasm is not only women. But there's this perception that shipping is this feminine thing, or this women invading a male space. But it's not really male-dominated, right? Many of us were fans, have been fans for a long time. Our mothers were fans. So, but there is this perception, and also sometimes they feel that if you're a shipper, you're not a real fan. That's not true. You like it. You watch it because you're a fan, and then you see these pairs and you like it. And sometimes other fans said, oh, there are these 15-year-old girls and now they're ship. Well, with every new movie program, you will have new people coming in, and some of them like the romantic pairings because it's normal. And also the last one, remember the letter from 1969, like, oh, this is disgusting, you know, the idea that women are maybe having fantasies and finding a character attractive. For some reason, it is disturbing for some people.
We have, why do some people hate Reylo in particular? And you know, it's important to know or remember that when the marketing for The Force Awakens first came out, it really made it sound to some people like Rey was going to be Luke's daughter. I actually myself went in thinking that. So then the idea of Reylo contradicts, you know, that popular fan theory and some others too. Also, some people think of it as it's completely made up by fans, like fans are kind of imagining things. They don't really see what to a lot of people seems obvious in the films. And also because, and this is something we'll see in articles even that have come out, a lot of people say, wait a minute, there are more obvious pairings in The Force Awakens, for example, so how come you guys are interested in Reylo? I think it's really important to remember that it doesn't really matter if a ship is canon or not. What matters is the enjoyment that fans get. That dynamic. So it really depends a lot on our preference. There are people who like things that are pretty clean-cut and clear, black and white, sweet. And then there are people like me who really like when there's like a little dynamic there, like angst, and you know, that you don't know if they're gonna fight or they're gonna kiss. So it really depends on the person, right? So if there's a ship for everyone out there. Another thing is, it must be mentioned, the fact that a lot of people want progressive pairings to be showcased, and they're, you know, upset because they want more representation. And I can understand that, but at the same time, you know, it's not, the Reylos didn't decide who's going to be, you know, featured as a central ship. So that is an important thing to pursue, but the fact is that, you know, for some people, what they're seeing is what they're interested in, and that doesn't really have to do with being progressive or not. It's just a preference. And then the last one I think is pretty interesting because as a Reylo, I can tell you in the fandom, we had to really defend our point of view. So we had to arm ourselves with our knowledge, like we pooled knowledge of psychology, literature, film, visual storytelling. The fact that we're not immoral, we're not, you know, horrible people, this is just what we're seeing. So then we presented the evidence and a lot of people said, oh, you guys are just, you know, showing off. Or like you're overthinking it. That one in particular really gets me because anybody who like buys tickets, flies out to Chicago, comes to a 5-day conference, cosplays, is overthinking it. That's part of being a fan. People make costumes at home. But somehow, if we're overthinking it and it is romance, then that's perceived as bad or shameful. That's sad. Another reason why we think some people hate Reylo is because they perceive that Kylo Ren is an irredeemable character, or that somehow it's morally wrong for Rey to be with him when there are more deserving people. But for Reylos, that really is the point of the ship, is that it's a story about redemption, right? So, but it's just a kind of mismatch in how we're approaching the thing. Also, Monte's going to tell us a little bit more about the nice guys finish last.
Yeah, a lot of reason why some guys want for Rey to end up with Finn is because he's a nice guy. They get, I'm a nice guy, and then of course she chooses the bad boy. So they flash back to all the times they got rejected, and they're thinking, oh no, it's not supposed to be that way, but it's not how it happens sometimes. And of course, the worst thing is like the double standard. You see a lot of heroes with dating villainesses, but when a villainess or when a heroine dates a villain, it's kind of considered that's not okay. But no one bats an eye when a guy dates a bad girl. Like for instance, like Batman dated Catwoman, no one ever bats an eye about that. No one's saying, oh, it's setting a bad example for little boys. And Daredevil's even a lot worse. People who don't follow it, he's dating 3 villainesses who's all trying to kill him or some of his best friends. Listen, we got Electro, who's a hired assassin who worked for Kingpin, his worst enemy, trying to kill him. His best friend, who's like his brother and the only family he has, yet took her back, forgave her. It's like, oh, he's so complex. That makes him more of a hero. Then he dated like Typhoid Mary, who's insane, has multiple personalities. Tried to kill him. His best friend, everyone he knows, oh, he's a hero for taking her back. Shows how good a heart he has. Then he dated like Echo, who pretty much was another villain who worked for Kingpin. Tried to kill him, his entire family. Takes her back. He's such a hero. That makes it so good. And of course, then he ends up helping redeem her. So, where have we heard that before?
And the final reason is the abuse angle, right? And the thing is, like, they talk about the interrogation as if it was abuse, but if you think about it, all the creators talk about it as a moment of bonding, connection. That would be very creepy, right? If they did abuse as something bonding. And there's the tree, he threw her against the tree, but she was shooting. She shot first. She always shoots first.
Like him.
So. And so, and that's the media, so the media talked about it. This is the first article that talked about Reylo, 50 Shades of Grey, right? Because it's the idea, and it's the idea that's 50 Shades of Grey, as if the 50 Shades of Grey had been the first fan fictions, and as if we were all 50 Shades of Grey fans, which we know it's not, but it's what we are being accused of. So it takes the biggest accusation and throws against us, right? And then it's not terrible. This article interviews some meta writers and some fan fiction writers, but it really frames it as something that it's women's imaginations. And then there's this paragraph where they're pretty much talking about what they consider as problematic in the couple without having any counter-argument. They never allow a Reylo to say no, because they say, for example, oh, aren't Finn and Rey the real couple? And you could say, no, that's not how we perceive it. Finn and Rey are adorable, but we don't feel it's that direction of the story. Isn't this a rape? Well, no. Aren't they cousins? Well, no, that's not, we don't think so. But you see, they're putting all these things that, it's abuse, maybe they're cousins, Finn and Rey is the couple, without having any chance for Reylos to say, no, that's not really what we see. And then there was a newer article that came in the Vanity Fair that was promoting The Last Jedi. That was when they asked Rian Johnson if there would be a central romance. And I guess he didn't really want to say. He said, oh no, there won't be a romance like Han and Leia. And then look how they write it. For all the fan fiction fantasies of Reylo, and imagine you... What? It's the other one? Okay, thank you. An imagined union of Daisy Ridley's Rey and Adam Driver's Kylo, or Storm Pilot, there won't be a central romance. So, they really need to frame it as fan fictions, as a, demoralizing term, and they bring Reylo that had not been mentioned, and they even bring Storm Pilot that I know some people, even I would like it to be, it could be subtle, it could be canon, but no way Storm Pilot fans would ever want it to be a central romance. I mean, so, and the journalist feels the need to bring this up in an article that is promoting the movie, as if, the opinion of shippers, it doesn't matter. So, yeah.
So we're going to continue talking a little bit about common myths about shipping in general for any pairing. The idea that it's only fan fiction. Well, there's fan art too, right? There's a lot of other ways that we manifest our love for a pairing. And just being enthusiastic about it is shipping. that shipping is only based on the imagination of the fans. So actually, it's based out of what we see in the canon, but the fans with their imagination take it way beyond, and sometimes, you know, the results are beautiful in terms of fan works that are produced, but also it's fun. That shippers are not interested in the rest of the story. Like, bringing it to the Star Wars fandom, everybody who's interested in romance in Star Wars and has enthusiasm for a pairing, it's because they love Star Wars. Otherwise, they'd be shipping in another fandom, right? And this one really gets me, that shippers are not interested in any characters that aren't in their ship. That's absolutely not true. Like, I identify myself as a Reylo shipper, but actually my favorite character after Kylo Ren is Finn. So, and I care about what happens to him in this story. And of course, I care about him. It's just that I don't see him in the dynamic with Rey. I'm speaking for myself as a person. I'm sure a lot of you guys, you know, have your favorite characters outside of your ship. It doesn't really have anything to do with not caring about someone. It's just that your focus as far as shipping is on the particular pair that you're supporting. Or the idea that, you know, shippers all want the same things, but that everybody who's in a ship is basically kind of like a little robot or zombie that's programmed to repeat the same thing. Even among the Reylo fandom, there are people who look at Reylo in completely different ways. Some people want Kylo and Rey to have a big wedding and babies. Other people want him to, like, actually stay evil and rule the galaxy and turn Rey to the dark side. I mean, there are so many different ways to ship. All that it entails is enthusiasm for the dynamic the pairing is showing, not necessarily what's going to happen. Even among the Reylo fans, there are some people who just don't like the direction of the sequel trilogy and only agree with other people about that they like Kylo and Rey on screen together. So it's absolutely not true that we all agree on everything else.
Shipping is only for women.
That shipping always includes 18 plus content. Not true. There are people who enjoy that. There are people who draw fan art that's explicit or who write stories about it, and that's great. But there are people who actually don't enjoy that in their fan art or fan fiction, and who are not interested in explicit content. So it's not, somehow there's lately people are linking shipping to pornography, and that's just not the case in every situation. That shippers always bash and hate other ships. I guess a lot of people haven't heard of multi-shipping, which is a thing. Like, you can love several pairings at the same time. You can even like the same character in different ships at the same time. And this one, that if a ship isn't canon, somehow it's a waste of time or not valid. That's just not the case, because you get a lot of enjoyment out of pairing people who, like, realistically are not going to end up together. Like Hux and Phasma, I mean, she's dead, but if you guys want to write fan fiction about it, you know, go for it. It's about enjoying your fandom experience. And this one here, that shippers want actors to get together in real life, could not be further from the truth. That's actually super creepy, and I have to tell you, I've been shipping Reylo in several different platforms. I have never seen anybody talking about, you know, investment in the actors, and I have actually seen people disavowing that, like when they come across it, like on Twitter. Reylos are the ones who are saying, we do not want any part of this. So it's just simply not the case. This is about fictional characters getting together, and we understand there's a difference between fiction and reality. For this part of our talk, we want to talk about our experience in the Reylo fandom. You know, all three of us actually met in 2015 online, because that's when we first started getting into the whole Reylo thing. So we were going to talk a little bit about what it is that we saw in The Force Awakens that made us head in that direction as opposed to any other. I think it's interesting for people who haven't had the experience and who don't understand, like, what is it that people are seeing in this pairing? How come, you know, they were enemies? Why are you guys invested in them? So we're going to explain a little bit about where that comes from.
This is what made me first take note of Reylo, the bridal party scene. I mean, when you do something like that, that sure says, I'm into this girl. Speaking from personal experience, when I picked up and carried a girl bridal style, her exact words were, oh my God, this is so romantic. Just like one of those perfect moments you only see in a movie. So, where I come from, personal experience, you don't do that with blood relatives. At least, anyway.
It was funny. I thought there would be siblings because I was looking forward to this complicated love-hate, complicated adversaries relationship. But then when it came to the scene, I was like, this is so close. This is so... There was something going on there. And that's when I thought, they are going to have a complicated love-hate relationship, but not as siblings.
This is my... So I went in, like I said, I had been just watching the trailers and I thought, for sure, okay, Luke is dad for Rey. I already know this story, I know exactly what's gonna happen. I'm like watching the movie and I'm like, everything's predictable. And then I come across this scene and I'm like, wait a minute. Because I don't know if you guys remember, in that moment, Kylo is coming up very close to her and then when the stormtroopers come, he withdraws. So at the time, I couldn't understand why that made me kind of perk up in my seat and be like, they're not cousins if they're doing that. Guys, it's a trope, it's an archetype. It's lovers in the woods, it's a man and a woman in the woods together. Even if that's obviously not the context of the scene, these are things that are kind of engraved in our minds. We're going to recognize it because we've seen this story play out so many times before. So later on, I connected the dots. I thought, what does that remind me of? It's Lord of the Rings. So because of, even the color blocking is the same. So each of us had little moments like that in the movie where we felt that we were recognizing what was going on, even if it wasn't in context of what was going on in the story. And for me, that's the moment when I started really paying attention to the interaction between Rey and Kylo Ren. So everything that happened after that, I was like hyper-analyzing from that lens. When I get home, the first thing I did was Google Rey and Kylo Ren relationship. And that's how I came across the term Reylo already in December 2015. People were speculating about it. So I want Monte to explain to everyone why we chose this picture here.
For those of the people not into football, this is the fun bunch for my beloved Redskins. This is during their golden era where everything was going great for them. They were at the top of their game, they was making the playoffs, winning championships, everything was just great and golden.
So we're going to talk about the golden era of the early days of Reylo Shipping. What happened was that we all met up at this online forum, a general Star Wars forum, in December 2015. And everybody was there. It's like we all kind of got a signal and we all headed there by chance. Denise was actually already part of that community. But we started talking like, did you guys see this? Did you notice what I noticed? Oh my God, is it possible? No, I'm sure, I thought she was gonna be Luke's daughter. And then we ended up exchanging information. We had people who actually had worked in filmmaking. We had people who had a background in psychology. We had people who were teaching literature. Everybody pooling their knowledge and analyzing, breaking down the tropes that were being presented. We had so much fun. It was an amazing experience. Friendships were formed there that to this day, people have become like family. We're friends to this day, and it was amazing. But we were flying under the radar, and nobody was really paying too much attention to us until it got extremely popular. And in that general Star Wars forum, the Reylo thread became the most visible part of it. And then what happened?
The
backlash. So we were actually run out of that community. We were told that it was a serious Star Wars community and we couldn't talk about people kissing and stuff. So we had to leave. But curiously, only the Reylos were asked to leave. So we ended up forming our own community. And we had a blast there where you were allowed to talk about Reylo as much as you wanted. Now from there came our first podcast, Star Wars Connection. So, it was a really big collaborative project. We wanted to bring the Reylo point of view and the shipping point of view to fans who were interested in the sequel trilogy. But we were terrified of actually saying Reylo because we saw what would happen to people who openly talked about it. You'd get run out and, cast off like you weren't a real fan. So we were actually afraid of being harassed and we were afraid of being shut down or targeted. So for the first 6 or 7 episodes, even though every single episode is Reylo-centric, we don't actually ever mention the word Reylo. Until finally it got popular enough that we felt, okay, we're just gonna do it. And we felt so brave when we actually came out and said Reylo. What happened was the response was super positive, overwhelmingly positive. People just flocked to us because they wanted a place where they could talk. Eventually, Denise and I ended up splitting off into our own project, Lords of the Sith podcast. And our friend Mary came with us, and we have our friend Monte, who's in Star Wars Connection with us, actually dropping in as a guest now and then. So what our experience has been from the beginning. We could talk about Reylo. If you notice, like all of our episodes have a big Reylo in the front because it was already mainstream. But certainly in the beginning, it was something that you had to do kind of like in hiding, like you were doing something wrong, and it was just terrible because we wanted to be Star Wars fans out in the open like anybody else. We have some time left. We wanted to briefly share with you guys some fan works that are part of the Reylo community. As far as fan fiction, this one is a work that's called Landscape with a Blur of Conquerors. It's an AR. It is amazing. If anybody who's curious about Reylo and wants to understand, like what's it about, how would it work, this is a great entry point into it. And actually, AO3 was nominated for a Hugo Award, you guys. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's relevant, the Hugo, because it's about science fiction and fantasy. So let's remember that fan fiction is not only romance, it is related to geek culture.
Absolutely. We also have fan art. I think fan art is a beautiful way of representing what you see in the pairing that you love about it, what the potential is there. I think it's gorgeous, and we have so many talented artists in the community. This is by our friend Ksenia, the previous one by our Beauteous Blossoms. I've actually met people who started shipping because they saw an image and they said, oh my God, that's beautiful, let me think about this more. And then of course we have meta. So this is one of our meta that is, we talk a lot about psychology of the characterization, trying to understand why the characters make the decisions that they do. And it's pretty interesting. I mean, one of the best things about shipping for me has been that, like getting to just think about it on a deeper level. This meta is by a meta writer named Claren45 on Tumblr. I invite you guys to check it out if you get the chance. She basically explains how bridges work as a trope in fiction and in Star Wars in general. It's basically crossing the threshold from one sphere to another. And she believes that the whole point of the ST is about crossing that bridge, and the bridge is the force bond between Rey and Kylo Ren. So if you want to kind of think deeply about things, this meta or like long form essays are a good way to go about it.
This is funny because in podcasting and being on YouTube, we get to see a lot of fans that are casual fans. This is not a casual fan. And a lot of guys and people that are different. And this is a really nice comment from somebody who did not enjoy The Last Jedi. There are many Reylos who did not enjoy it, mainly because of look or whatever. And he's talking about how shipping can be a point of union. So he says, one thing Reylo has done for me as a fan is help me find middle ground with fans that I otherwise disagree with when it comes to the sequel trilogy. I think Reylo can be a unifying issue for a lot of fans across the board. So I think it's really nice how we can all, even though we have different opinions, people talk about the fan divide, people who loved TLJ, people who hate TLJ, and there is this middle ground where we can all get together.
Let's bring it back around to why we ship. So there's a very beautiful quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson here that you guys can read. It basically, when you have dynamics between people, that's something that we can all relate to in one way or another. So it humanizes the characters born to us. So having an interest in a love story or a love dynamic is a natural thing for people. But for us in particular, we found that shipping has enhanced our fandom experience. So each of us is briefly going to talk about that. You want to start us off, Denise?
Yeah, for me, I think in a way it's just good that people said, no, you guys are crazy, you're seeing things. And I'm like, yeah, it's a movie, I go there to see things. But the need to, so I started like, first I was discussing, writing, and then we started, so many wonderful people that worked together with us, some are here, and we started doing podcasting, because we said, oh, we don't hear people talking about it in podcasts, let's start doing it. And I think also the idea of making friends, really being involved in it, and I think it was really fun for me. And I started podcasting in the beginning, I was like, oh, I can't do this because I have an accent, and it was really nice to find out that it hasn't been a problem for the most part.
I like shipping because I met a lot of interesting new people, like my co-guests up here. And a lot of friends I made from Star Wars Connections and online. And overall, it really opened my eyes to like storytelling, visual arts, and stuff like that, stuff that I never paid attention to. But now I notice in other books and movies and things I read, and just overall helped me grow artistically, if you will.
For me, one thing that I noticed was that Star Wars has become a part of my daily life, and in part is because of my interest in the dynamic between Rey and Kylo Ren. Like, if it weren't for that part of it, I think I would have left The Force Awakens and now and then kind of been checking on spoilers and things like that, and then I would have thought about it again for TLJ, and then again now that stuff is coming out for 9. But because I was so invested in what I was seeing, and I was kind of making connections to the story being told through the larger saga, and using my knowledge of other aspects of things that have nothing to do with Star Wars, kind of to tie it in, and then seeing other people's point of view, that just really made me even more interested in Star Wars, and it has become a really important part of my life. Also, I've learned so much being part of the fandom, because, I mean, where else would I get to talk with a filmmaker, you know, or with a literature teacher? It's just amazing where everybody is so generous with their knowledge and with their talent, and I've made lifelong friends thanks to that. So for me, it's really just another way of enjoying your Star Wars fandom life, and it's just as valid as any other. Okay, so it's coming off. So we wanted to leave you guys with this conclusion. These are, I mean, I think hopefully you got that out of our talk today, that shipping transcends age, gender, cultural background. It really doesn't have anything to do with that. It's about your love for the material. The strong tradition of shipping did not start with the sequel trilogy or with Twilight. It actually goes way back, and it's part of the culture. Shipping can enhance the fandom experience, and it's about enthusiasm for pairing. It doesn't entail agreement on anything else. People ship in different ways. And we're not a hive mind, and certainly we don't bite. Most people who are interested in shipping are lovely people who support love and want peace and love, and not like angry and bashing and stuff like that. So I think you guys probably know that too. We want to thank you so much for joining us today. You can contact us if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to learn more about what we talked about today. Here's our contact information. And we hope you enjoy the rest of Celebration. We hope to bump into you guys out there too. And thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So this was our panel at the University Stage Star Wars Celebration 2019. I really need to give a special thanks to Mary Claire and Ty from What the Force. It's an awesome podcast, by the way. They have amazing interviews and a show, but they recorded this audio and it sounds really good. And we also want to thank, like, there are so many other podcasts and projects that really supported us. You have no idea how much your support means to us. It's been really amazing. And to everyone who went and watched us, it was really cool. So thank you very much for listening. If you'd like to write a comment or send a message, feel free. Let's continue the discussion here in the comment section. Remember that you can watch us on YouTube and listen to us on iTunes and SoundCloud. And we're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. Thank you very much for listening, and may the Force serve you well.